bringing you the power of storytelling. Please welcome on stage Global Head of Content, Wonderman, the lovely Miss Tara Marsh.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I have the lucky after lunch slot. I'm sure there was some beers consumed at lunch. So, storytelling. I'm actually going to start by telling you a story. It's a Wednesday, September 13, 1848. It's over 150 years ago. We're in Cavendish, Vermont, in the northeastern United States. It's a beautiful day. It's 4:30 p.m. in the afternoon. The colors of the leaves are just starting to change because it's autumn. And the smell of the woods is mixed with the smell of gun smoke. And then along comes this tall, handsome, 25-year-old young man called Phineas Gage. Phineas is a foreman working to build the railroads across the United States. His job is to blast away the rock that's in the way of the railroad's path. He thinks he has the coolest job in the world. Every day, what he does is drills a hole in the rock, he fills it with gunpowder, he tamps the gunpowder down with a meter-long, 6-kilo metal rod, and then he inserts a fuse and explodes it. So just like any day, he drills a hole in the rock, he pours in the gunpowder, and he starts to press it down. Bam! There's an explosion. The gunpowder exploded prematurely, and it shot that meter-long metal rod under his left eye and outside the top of his skull. Amazingly, Phineas was alive and fully conscious. He was rushed to the hospital in Cavendish, where Dr. John Harlow treated him, patched up the holes in his skull, and kept him under observation. He made, apparently, a full recovery. He lived for another 13 years, with his physical health apparently intact. There was no lasting impairment to his memory, his speech, his intellect. And yet, very soon, his friends and colleagues began to realize that Phineas was greatly changed. He was once a capable and efficient foreman at the railway, and now he was increasingly irritable, erratic, profane, swearing all the time, and most interestingly, he couldn't make decisions. Not just big decisions at work, but small decisions. He couldn't decide what to eat for breakfast, what clothing to wear. And this was the first time that brain scientists began to theorize that there is a connection between the part of the brain that governs emotion and decision-making. So let's talk about that for a moment, emotion versus rationality. I expect there are a few people in here who are familiar with rational economic theory from Adam Smith, the father of economics. And really at the heart of rational economic theory is the assumption that we as individuals, when faced with a number of options, will evaluate those options and choose the best one. I mean, that makes sense, right? That we would do that. And certainly as marketers, we make that assumption about our consumers. We assume that our customers will evaluate the options and pick the best option for themselves. And yet, we consistently are not rational. We consistently don't do that. We consistently drink too much. I was lucky to try my first King's beer last night. I was excited about that. I had 2. I probably should have had 1. We consistently oversleep or don't sleep enough. We consistently make decisions where we know there will be negative consequences, and yet we do anyway, because we are not rational. We cannot be rational. There is not enough time or information for us to possibly assess all of our options fully and make a perfect decision. In fact, we are not thinking machines. We are feeling machines that think. And without emotion, we are unable to reason. Emotion is the link between the rational and the irrational. So, as an example, When did you last have an argument? I want everyone to think back to the last time you had an argument with a friend about something that you were passionate about, something you cared about a lot. Maybe a movie or politics or a cricket game. And I want you to think to yourself, did anything that your friend said change your mind? At any point did you say, you know what, you make a great point. I'm going to reconsider my opinion. Anyone? Probably not. Most of you probably just thought, oh my God, my friend is so annoying. Why are they being so stubborn and blind to my point of view? And in fact, several studies have shown that if you want to change someone's mind, logic doesn't work very well. And most of us are in this room because we are in the business of changing people's minds, of helping people make decisions. So how do we do that? How does a brand help someone make a decision to choose your product, your service? Think about the kinds of decisions that you make every day in your life. You decide which restaurant to go to for dinner, or whether to buy a car, or which house to buy. If you think about those kinds of decisions, there are lots of different parameters around those decisions. You might have different amounts of time. You might have different things at stake. Some decisions have more importance than others. And generally, they're hard work, because thinking is hard work. Our brain uses 20% of the energy that our bodies produce. So we are designed to minimize how much energy it takes up, and basically to minimize how much decision-making that we make. So we have a lot of mental shortcuts to help us do that. We delay decision-making as long as possible, often until it's a crisis. We like to procrastinate. We choose mental shortcuts as an example, like choosing the restaurant that has a large crowd of people outside. We use that as a mental shortcut for saying, that's a good restaurant. There's a crowd of people outside, so I'll go to that restaurant, even though you don't know anything about the restaurant other than that. Emotion is also often something that we use as a mental shortcut because we form attachments to brands. And brands can help a lot in this way because we often choose what we are familiar with. We choose what we are comfortable with. We choose patterns that we recognize. Brands can help by allowing you to navigate your options more easily, and in fact, by narrowing the options. It's much easier to choose between a small number of things than a large number of things. And one of the things that brands can do, if you really do want to create a connection with the consumer and help them with that decision-making, is storytelling. It's tapping into the emotion, being engaging. It's really about having a powerful narrative, and that is at the core of all good marketing, especially content marketing, but all good marketing has a powerful narrative at its core. Really what it comes down to is good content finding that common interest between the brand and your audience, and then contributing to it in some way. The very best content seeks to actively add to culture. I actually heard the previous speaker today from Crispin Porter also spoke about culture. I completely agreed with what he said. I think it's really important to think about how the content you create can actively add to culture. And at this point, I have to make a little mention of the next speaker. I really wish that everyone in here was here to see me, but I'm guessing a lot of you are just here earlier to see Karen when he comes up to speak. He's a master storyteller. I think it's perfect that after this session, you will hear from someone who is a great storyteller in a different type of way, but storytelling is important in every part of our lives, in our communications with our friends, with our families, and as brands communicating to their audience. So this is a great story, but this concept of storytelling, this concept of creating really engaging content in marketing, this isn't new. It's so not new that as long ago as 1895, John Deere, I wonder if everyone knows John Deere, big equipment manufacturers, tractors, things like that, farming equipment. John Deere started publishing a magazine called The Furrow. It's a magazine that has lots of interesting content, I guess, about farming and tractors and things like that. I'm not the target audience, but that magazine is still in circulation today to 2 million people. That's content marketing. That's like the original content marketing. So if this isn't a new idea, why does it matter so much now? why are we talking so much about content marketing for the last couple of years? Because it really has become quite the industry buzzword. So, a couple of reasons. People are getting a lot better at ignoring traditional marketing. They were already pretty good at ignoring traditional marketing. But technology has changed how they are able to do this. So, ad blocking. I'm sure we're all aware of this big trend. This is a stat that's actually probably already 6 months or more old, so it might be higher, and it's a global statistic, that 40% of people under 30 are using ad blockers. This is on PC, not on mobile. But we are starting to see this more and more on mobile as well as PC. And some estimates, this is an estimate from Google, is that as many as 56% of display ads might not even be seen by a human being. So I'm not saying there's not a role for more traditional digital advertising. There absolutely is. It still plays an important role. But for engagement with your audience, the bar has been raised. And that's why we are going back to the basics of good marketing. And to how we actually started this session, which is the fundamental premise of not interrupting what people are interested in, but becoming what they are interested in. If I was to encapsulate in three descriptions what content marketing really is, what constitutes content marketing, there are 3 aspects to it. First of all, is it something that your audience actually chooses to spend time with? And if you think about that with traditional advertising versus content marketing, an ad is not something that someone is choosing to spend time with, it's something that they have been forced to spend time with. Content marketing could be paid media, it could still be a TV ad, but it's a TV ad that is good enough that someone chooses to spend time with it. It needs to be relevant to them, I think that probably goes without saying, and it needs to provide value. Now, this concept of value provision is quite core to the whole concept of content marketing. It's something that we think about very carefully at Wonderman, and we think about it in a few different ways. At its heart is the idea that if you are going to earn the time and attention of your audience, you have to give them something in exchange. And if you think about what you're competing with for their time and attention, you're not necessarily competing with other brands. You are, but if you think about your Facebook feed. If you pull out your mobile phone and you're scrolling down through Facebook and you see an ad for a brand, that ad is sandwiched between a post about tonight's party and a post from your mom about your niece dressed up in a cute little costume. That's what we're competing with. We're competing with ordinary, awful, amazing, everyday life. That is what is consuming the rest of the time and attention. So if we're going to compete and win, we need to provide value. And we think about providing value along the lines of 6 different what we call content currencies. So different ways in which you can provide value. Very quickly, so that you understand what the differences are between them, information is the most basic level of providing value. This is the product specs, the price, review information. It's the basic things that you need to be able to make a decision, which we were talking about earlier. A retailer like Amazon does this very, very well. Education goes to that next level of information. It's helping someone understand the why. This is the type of thing that big B2B marketers, like say a Microsoft, do very well with lots of thought leadership and white papers. Inspiration, this gets more into idea generation, motivation. I'll show you an example of that shortly. Entertainment, Red Bull is the obvious one here. There's lots of great examples of entertainment, and it doesn't have to be in the CPG space. GE actually does a great job of bringing to life hard industrial machinery in a very entertaining way. And then utility and experience. These ones are interesting because they are where marketing starts to blend into product. And more, we have seen that the whole experience that a customer has is often led now by marketing. And marketing is very much influencing and informing product. If you think about things like, if anyone's ever been to Disneyland with their kids, the ticket that you get is now an electronic bracelet that is your room key and your ticket and your credit card. That was actually built by the marketing agency, and yet it is fundamental and integral to the whole experience. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples to bring this to life. And the comment I'm going to make here is that it is not sufficient anymore just to be making sure you're giving the right information or the right education. How you give that information is also important. Thinking about the format of delivery of content is important. And I'm sure you are all very well aware that video is where everything is going. Massive increases in consumption of video. It got huge pickup. Basically, it got free, so much earned media pickup. BuzzFeed ran the story because it was so good. And how did they do that? There was an insight there, right? That people are uncomfortable, even with their partner, with sharing text messages on their phone. And this leads me to the next point I want to make, which is you think about the importance of telling stories and you think about the right format, but how do you find what that story is? You need data. You need to find the human truth, the insight. And who does this really, really well? Netflix. I bet everyone in here watches House of Cards, right? Yes? House of Cards, according to Netflix, is the most streamed piece of content in the US and 40 other countries. And they knew it was going to be a hit before it was a hit. In fact, they bought the whole first season without even buying a pilot episode. They just bought the whole season outright, commissioned it into production. Why did they do that? How did they know that? There were three things. One, the director, David Fincher. He was already very popular with Netflix's 30-odd million subscribers. Kevin Spacey, the man in the picture. Pretty much anything Kevin Spacey does seems to be pretty successful. And then finally, the success of the British series. So House of Cards, the one that everyone knows, was based on a very successful British version of it. So they had three things coming together that gave them enough confidence to say, we can place a bet here. And they were right. The other thing that they did very well was when they then marketed it, and they did 10 different cuts of the trailer for House of Cards, and depending on what they knew about you, people in this audience would have been served different cuts of that trailer. What a fantastic use of data to tell the right story to the right person, even though the ultimate end goal is the same. This is really at the heart of what we do at Wonderman. And we have an approach called collision, which is about the collision of data and creativity. Because unless you bring those two things together at every stage in the process, then your ideas are not working hard enough. I have just one more video that I'm going to show you, which is a piece of work that we did in London for the Sun newspaper. And a little bit of context first. The Sun has a franchise called Dream Team, which is basically a fantasy football product that you have to subscribe to. So for those who are not familiar with fantasy football, the basic concept is that you choose players from many real teams and you create a virtual team from those players. And then your team performs based on how those real players perform in real life. So with that context, I want you to take a look at this campaign.
In England, football fans swear lifelong allegiance to a single club, and it is a cultural sin to support anyone else. The rivalry between Man United and Man City is almost war. Chelsea hate West Ham, and an Arsenal supporter would rather eat broken glass than have anything to do with Spurs. Yet when these avid football fans play Dream Team, one of the largest fantasy football leagues in the UK and run by the Sun newspaper, they select players from across the whole league, even choosing star footballers from their most hated rivals to build their ultimate make-believe team. In fact, data from the previous year showed 76% of Chelsea fans picked a Tottenham player for their dream team, and 66% of Spurs fans secretly picked Arsenal players. Oh, the shame. This unspoken taboo was the insight for our integrated campaign to drive Dream Team registrations and downloads of the Sun Goals app with the message, "It's not cheating when it's your dream team." The campaign included films showing guilt-ridden fans desperately seeking help, 28 print ads across national newspapers, digital media on major sports websites, direct mail to the fans of each of the major football clubs, bespoke to feature their team scarf and a startling fact about their fellow fans. And in social media, we challenge football fans to confess their dream team sins. Plus, as each pre-season game was played, we used social to highlight instances of dream team cheating, such as when Man City's star player Yaya Toure played an absolute shocker. 9,000 fans dropped him from their dream team. In just 3 weeks, there were 6 million impressions of the Dream Team Confessions hashtag, and the campaign reached over 4 million on Facebook and more than 12 million on Twitter. And despite the introduction of a paywall for the first time in 20 years, The campaign achieved over 630,000 registrations.
I mean, what a human truth. It's not cheating when it's your dream team. And what I find so great about this example is that the insight, the data, actually became the campaign. So, in conclusion, if you're going to do content marketing really well, what it comes down to is understanding your audience, putting them first in every way, thinking about how you can ease the friction of decision making, how you can connect with them emotionally and understand those emotional drivers, what the right format of storytelling is. Should it be words or should it be emojis? Because sometimes there are no words. Sometimes there are only tears of joy. Thank you.
Okay, so fantastic presentation, Tara. I mean, I'm sure you can see a packed house here. Everybody has been appreciating it. When I was sitting in the audience, I was checking. So, two quick questions. Okay, one, there's a huge amount of questions from the audience. We should clap for them, actually. And I'll pick a couple of them because I think we are running behind time. So, first one, this comes from Sumit from Radio Mirchi. With attention spans getting shorter, do you think videos will also become passe?
It's a very good question. I mean, the fragmentation of attention in general it's one of the key drivers that is raising the bar on the quality of content that we create. But actually, I don't have exact stats to hand, but what we've seen is that a really good piece of content, people will actually pay attention to and watch. So it again is just a case of raising the bar. I do think people will engage with video. I don't think that format will go away.
Yeah. The next question is from, which one? Yeah. So this is also talent related. So this is from Abhinay Bhasin from Kara Media. Should advertising companies invest more in behavioral economists and data scientists rather than traditional media planners?
Was it invest more in?
Invest more in behavioral economists and data scientists?
In my opinion, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, all are important, but anthropology, the understanding of human behavior, that is everything, right? Unless you understand people, how can you understand how to engage with them and how to change their minds and make them decide to choose you?
Yeah. The last, I think we don't have too much time. In your opinion, which is a great digital campaign that led directly to sales? This is from Teresa Ronnie from Publicis.
A digital campaign that led to sales. Gosh.
Directly led to sales.
That directly led to sales. I mean, there's so many. It's so hard to pick which. The first point that I will make, actually, is that it depends on how you measure that, right? So I think that there are a lot of examples I've seen of really good content, in theory, leading to increases in sales because we see a correlation, but you don't directly see that. And your question was about direct. So if you're going to see a direct impact, generally I look to the B2B space where you actually can measure directly how someone is responding to content. And that's where I would call out Microsoft and some of the great content that they create that sits behind an email wall, and you therefore know that someone has put in an email address to download a piece of valuable content that they've created, and that means there's value in it to them if they've given you their email address, and then from that point you can track that sale. And we've done a number of pieces of work for Microsoft where we have directly seen the value of content marketing in driving that sale.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Tara. Do we have the thing for the best question, Jay? Yeah? Yeah, so in my view, the best question goes to Abhinay Bhasin from Kara Media.